Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's live stream, The Great Data Debate, What Matters. We're super excited to jump into today's topic, but before we get started, we wanted to do some quick introductions. So with that, Leah, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, I'm Leah Pearman. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Customize 365. We're a Microsoft Dynamics company, and we partner with some of the best people in the world to help our small business customers. Laura?
Awesome. Laura Osborne, Chief Marketing Officer here at Customize 365. And as Leah said, supporting customers that come on board to get their implementations in place, really focusing on the small business market to make sure that everything is successful and helps to propel your business forward, which actually ties into what we're talking about today. So one of the things that we will highlight is one, who is Customize 365 and why we work with small businesses. But as part of our Silver Path to Succession series, this live stream is all about the state of data today in small businesses. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and then dive into a couple of real world examples and some of the problems that we're seeing, as well as some of the actions that you can take to get your data in a better state. And then we'll wrap up with a brief Q&A. And with that, I will turn it over to Leah to chat a little bit more about who we are.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, so like you said, the focus here with Customize 365 is really on the silver path, what we're calling the silver path. There's a term that's been coined called the silver tsunami. And that's really just something clever to talk about the vast majority of people who are in the same age group as retirees, either soon retiring or planning to retire in the very near future. And we realize that this is probably a pretty underserved community of people given its size. So one of the things that we did was partnered with our CEO, which his name is Kurt, and he started this company with me as a buying process, a buying journey for a large real estate company. And he realized very quickly that the company he worked for had the funds and the people required, and everything was already in place to be a successful transition to to Microsoft Dynamics. But what about those small businesses? What about the people that we could serve? And what does that look like as we move forward with this silver tsunami that's happening? So we talked, and these 3 bullet points here: fully implemented and customized Microsoft Dynamics Power BI solutions. What does that really mean? That just means that we have the exact same things that you're going to need that Wall Street uses on Main Street. It means that you're going to be able to have the tools at your disposal to get your data and your business, and for maximizing profit if you're looking to sell it, or in a great place if you're going to have a generational succession, whether that's to your children, other family members, or just your business partners. We also bring expertise making digital transformations reality. This isn't something that's just for big companies because they've got that big bandwidth or they've got lots of people working on this. We're going to work with you and for you to make your business be in a great place. And then finally, the partnership mindset. We have some of the best partners that are focused solely on small business. We know what you need, we know how to deliver it, and we're ready to get started. Laura? I wanted to talk a little bit about why this matters. And this graphic here is what your data looks like today. I have several customers that I'm talking to that say they've got bins. One customer has 50 bins, one for each state. And that's where they put their information. And some states they don't even do business with, but just in case, they've got a bin. I've talked to one person who has 12 colored folders, and everything to do with those is done by monthly. And that's how they realize when people have bills due, by a colored folder in the number of 12. That's not very secure, first and foremost. It's also not very efficient. What happens when that person leaves or isn't in? Do you miss your monthly billing? And so it's disparate, it's spattered, it's here, it's there. And that's really not safe, that's not secure, and that's not a great path for succession. What we'd love to see your data look like is more like this, where it's consistent and everything is coordinated with what your plan is for succession. Is your billing in order? Do you have your customers? You know them as your customers, but do you know them as your buying customers? Do you know them as when their bills are due, or how that's going to look in the future for your succession planning? So we really want to get your data in a very nice matrixed way so that you get the most money out of your bills your billings, or whether or not you have that really clear and together for your family. So, how do you get there? Right? So, it sounds great. You know that you need to do that. Some of you might have even shook your head when I said something about those bins. The important thing to think about first and foremost is identify what you're capturing. And we know that you might not even be capturing some of the things that you'll need. The second part is, where's that at? Is it in bins? Is it in file folders? Is it in, worst case, someone's head? And then figure out what you're missing. If you want to get the maximum profit out of this business that you've spent your life building the success plan for, then we want to help you with that. And we can help you figure out what's missing and where that resides and how to put that all in one place. So again, we go from that tiny and little and fractured focus into that nice matrix focus. We wanted to talk about,
Awesome.
go ahead, Laura, please.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say that we should dig into some of the real world examples that we've seen with some of our customers and what we've heard just within the market. Because I think sometimes that helps it feel a little bit more real of what does this actually mean? Like the bin example, I think is fabulous. And I'm sure everybody has a story like that has ever worked for a small business or owned a small business, just because oftentimes you're so busy keeping the business running that you don't think about, okay, what does this actually mean? And so we know that data often falls to the bottom of the pile to manage of we'll pick that up later. And like Leah said, having some systems in place can really help. All right, should we jump in, Leah, and talk a little bit about some of the things that we've seen?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this in two separate ways, one on how a marketing and perspective standpoint and one from a sales standpoint. So you go ahead.
Perfect. So this one is a really interesting one. It's a small financial services company that was having an issue with gaining some market share. So I think the thing that was really interesting here is, when hearing from the founder, it sounded like, from a sales perspective, that things were going really well. Opening up the conversation to say, well, how many opportunities are you winning? What is your win rate? And, it was, oh, we win, 98% plus of the opportunities that we have. And I think Leah would probably agree, but that is kind of a dream number to have as a sales leader. That's really saying that you're winning every single opportunity. So digging into that, what we found was that yes, they were tracking the opportunities, but only those that they were going to win. So the thinking was, let's only track the ones that we know are going to become a customer, the ones that we want to invest that time in and understand, okay, how do we take them from where they are to where we want them to go? But there was a lot that was missing here. So, from a marketing perspective, not having the insight into the opportunities that were lost or those leads that didn't convert into an opportunity for sales to follow up on was a huge miss. It made it really hard to create a marketing strategy of going out and retargeting or recapturing those leads, taking a look at the data that you can capture from a win-loss perspective to understand what might be missing. Why are people walking away? Why are they not going into an active sales cycle? Or if they are in an active sales cycle, why are we losing them? So that gap in data was a really big detriment to the business. And, as we learned more, really spoke directly to that issue with how they weren't able to gain that market share. So from a marketing perspective, it really limited kind of that visibility and that awareness that we were able to build because that wasn't available as part of the data package. And, as marketing looks at how to support sales, it meant that they were limited there too. And I'm sure Leah can lament on why that is such a rough thing from a sales perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I hear someone say that they're winning 98% of their business, the first thing I say is there's no way. And so it was a red flag for me, which is not to be insulting to that company. It just showed that they had a data miss, that they had a piece of what was really important to understanding the entire market they were missing because they weren't focused on that. And as a salesperson myself, I have learned as much from my losses as I have from my wins. In fact, I always say I don't lose a deal. I either win or I learn something. So I think it's really important that we talk about this and how a CRM can help you. And as you said too, Laura, I have plenty of times gone back through my closed lost deals and said, why did I lose this? Did they decide not to make a decision? Were they not in a good financial spot when I approached them? And sometimes it turns right back around, and you had made a great relationship with them, and now they are in a good spot to buy. But if we hadn't captured that data, that would have been a lost sale, a truly lost sale.
Yeah, and I think I'd be interested, Leah, from your perspective, especially looking at it from the sales lens of, as you look at a CRM and the information that you can capture. So, say you have that lost opportunity, how can you use a CRM to capture that data and understand what happened?
Yeah. So first and foremost, of course, is keeping the conversation going. If this is a customer who chose a competitor, that's important to know too. It's important to know your competitors in the market. And that's something that you can record and track. And maybe at some point you realize you're losing 50% of your business to a single competitor. And maybe you should look at them a little closer and figure out what they're doing. And how they're succeeding, what they're offering. You can get a lot of insights to your sales success by what your competitors are doing. But if you aren't capturing that information, you don't know that. Furthermore, I think too that if the customers didn't go with a competitor, they just went with no decision, which is most often the case, it gives you a great opportunity to drip marketing campaigns to them, to continue a communication with them that's not sales focused, just information focused. And you can do that super simple with a CRM on a scheduled basis. You can see whether or not people are opening those emails and those communications. You can continue to educate them on your product and your business. You can't do that if you don't have them recorded somewhere.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really important point that, if you look at the bin system or the folder system, you're missing that automation. So being able to leverage the CRM to automate a lot of that outreach, automate tasks for your sales folks so that they have a reason to follow up or know that they need to follow up. I think that the automation clearly gives some benefits, and knowing that as a small business you likely don't have a lot of resources to dedicate, that can really give some extra support and give your customers some extra love so they feel like, they are being followed up on and that you are paying attention to their needs.
Yeah, excellent point. Because I think they say, they being sales professionals, people who write those fancy books, that it takes about 12 touches before you actually get in and make a sale. So if you don't track your losses or track the people who made no decisions, you're way behind on those touch points, and keeping in communication with them about what you're going to be doing in the future. So it's incredibly important, like you said, to have that automated piece that can do that. You spend your time building your new business, let your system send out those marketing campaigns, send out that drip, in order for them to stay communicated with. Excellent point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think before we move on to the next one, what would you say, like, as you gathered information around this one and kind of analyzed what the situation was? I know we've thrown out a couple of ideas of what might make the most sense for a company like this for moving forward, but as you think about what a CRM might look like for a company like this, what would your recommendation be?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to start super simple, something that everyone understands and can get behind. So you can have simple categories: closed won, closed lost, closed abandoned. And then you can filter on those kinds of designations, and maybe able to put some percentages around what part of your business falls into those categories. And then with those closed ones, you can continue to nurture them. You can continue to have fields added to your system that allow you to track their renewals or their billing cycles, so that you don't have to, again, this is the bin situation where we've got 12 of them, and to know that this is February, in February I need to contact these 5 people. Why not have a system that does it for you, that automates that, so you can spend your just incredibly important, valuable time doing other tasks than just those mundane ones.
Totally. And I think from a marketing perspective, again, that automation comes into play. So, as Leah said, to kind of build on the categories, you could take a look at, okay, one, how can you inform whoever owns your marketing within the organization? If you have a marketing leader or if you have someone who, is wearing a lot of hats, but how can you inform them with some of that feedback of what you're seeing from these opportunities? Because sometimes, exactly like what Leah said, it's when you lose where you get the most insight on what you can do better in the future. And so it gives you some insight into the market and gives you some of that market research without having to put a lot of effort behind it. But then that helps to inform your messaging and what you should do next. So with the CRM and the ability to automate, you can send out marketing that's very tailored and specific to those specific categories and what they should do. So it doesn't have to be someone sitting down and, every time someone goes into a specific category, now you have to flag someone to write an email and send it out. You can have the CRM do it all for you.
Right.
And that can complement exactly what the sales team is doing. So it becomes one of those things where, you're hitting those touches, you're making sure that they are recognizing your organization, keeping you in mind, but you're also providing that information for them to understand why you are the best solution and why you solve the challenges that they have in front of them and why they should work with you.
Yeah, and I'll add one final thought before we move on. I think too is if you're noticing on your close loss that you lost because of the same reason over and over again, and no one in the industry solves that problem, that's a great opportunity for your company. And you would otherwise miss that. And maybe it's a small fix, maybe it's a small partnership that you can create and triple your business.
Yeah, yeah. And that actually leads really nicely into our next scenario, which Leah, did you want to talk a little bit about what this one looks like?
Yeah, we're working with a small manufacturing company who doesn't have any partnerships because they know a guy, and we all have stories. I'm sure every single one of us who watches this and hears this podcast will realize everybody's got someone in their family that knows everybody else, right? Like even our CEO, we love him so much. He knows a guy. He has something for everybody. But the idea is those people live with you in that relationship. And how do you build that out in a CRM in order to leverage strategic partnerships and have them do business with you? And why are you working with them? Like I said, if you've gone through your closed loss and you realize a small tweak to what you sell or a small partnership built to what you sell can triple your business, why would you not want to leverage something like that in order to make the most of it? You can't just know a guy. You can't just know that there's someone out there in another industry who can help you out. Certainly leverage those relationships, but find out whether or not those are strategic partnerships that can focus on the here and now, um, and how that builds to the future, right? So it's kind of like the idea of making sure you're future proofing your relationships as well. Do you have some examples as well, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a marketing perspective, there's so much that you can do with a partnership. So when you know a guy and you call somebody to help you through something, that's not generally something that you can capitalize on. It's something that happens in the background. Generally, it's kind of like in a pinch of, okay, yep, we're going to solve this problem. We're going to move on. But if you're able to, build that as a partnership or a strong relationship, from a marketing perspective, you can, work together to do kind of a joint marketing campaign. Last month we hosted an awesome live stream with one of our partners who is a recruiter. And that's something that, if we just know a guy, we can't really do that. So, from a marketing perspective, it helps you build that awareness and that exposure and share your message with a completely new audience and vice versa. So, I really think that looking at partnerships beyond, okay, what can you do for me today? And what is the customer problem that you can solve? And thinking about it from what does this actually mean to my business? What can we showcase to the market? And most importantly, how can we differentiate? Which I think is really important when you think about those sales opportunities too.
Yeah, absolutely. Focusing on the here and now is only here and now. It's not going to be that future planning. It's not going to be that large picture that we're helping you create as you're trying to exit the business on your succession planning. So I think it's really important to be thinking about that as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I'll add is like, the idea of, okay, I know a guy, but now I'm going to move into this realm of strategic partnerships. That might sound a little overwhelming and a little scary of, okay, now I need to have a process behind this. I have to have contracts. I have to have all these other things set up. But it doesn't mean that the guys that can't become those strategic partnerships. It's just leveraging them in a different way and formalizing it. So, from a marketing perspective, is there a way where you could announce it via a press release, have it officially on your website? And I'm sure Leah has some ideas of how it could be tracked in the CRM too.
Yeah, absolutely. Gone are the days of Rolodex, Filofax. I have a quick story. I was on the phone just this week with my cell phone provider, my mobile carrier, and something happened, and my account had apparently been wiped out. We don't know why. It was bizarre. I couldn't log into anything, and so I'm on the phone with Live Help, surprisingly, Live Help, and they said to me, "Can you confirm the other three phone numbers on your phone plan?" And I absolutely, my daughter, my husband, but then there's my dad. And I could not remember my dad's phone number. I had to look it up. I know my childhood landline phone number to this day, but I couldn't because I don't look up information that way anymore. It's not efficient. It's not safe. And so I had to go and browse through my contacts to find my dear dad's phone number. I think that's the important part of this is to say if you put that information in a digital format, not only is it accessible to everyone, it's kind of the way we live today. There aren't going to be those big file cabinets anymore. To say nothing of data privacy and data security, but just the access, taking, walking around trying to find that information somewhere. Luckily for me, right at my fingertips, and I was able to validate that I am who I say I am to that particular phone carrier, and we were able to move through it. But I think the important thing is, as we wrap up, is to think about where is that data at, and where do we put it? How do we get it together? How do we start with something as a building block? And how do we stop having to remember all those phone numbers?
Exactly. Free up that brain space. But I think that's also an important point is as you look at kind of the future of your small business and as you think about succession planning, whoever's going to take over your business, they don't know a guy, but they will know the digital record that you create. They will know the, official partnership that you build with that person. It doesn't mean that it has to be overly formalized, but it's taking a look at more than it's a phone number that I memorized 10 years ago, but now it's a record that I have in the system that everybody can take a look at.
Right. And the old saying, it used to be that if you got hit by a bus, but that's too morbid. So if you win the lottery or any of those valuable employees that you have win the lottery, what happens the next day? Right? All that information still lives in their head, their very rich head.
Exactly. Which I think leads to a good way to summarize our conversation today.
Yeah, I think so too. Your business is only as rich as your data. I think that's the crux of what we're talking about here. If you have it in various places, if you have it in various formats, if you have it in a way that only one or two people understand, or that you have the one person in the room who knows the guy, that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem in the future because of accessibility, because of privacy matters, and just because you want to grow your business in an organic way as fast as possible. So we want to focus on what capturing what matters for where you're going. And then we want to identify what's missing. Are there that win-loss report that we talked about earlier? How can you maximize your business relationships as well as your goals based on those kinds of things? And then how do you maximize and monetize? How do you tell the story of your business so that regardless of your succession planning, whether that's generational or to another business or to a larger business or selling it outright, how do you get the most of that?
Perfect. So we have a minute or two for Q&A. So if you have any questions, definitely pop those in and we'll take a look and get to as many as we can. But did want to let you know that, this is a series that we're hosting. So the Silver Path to Succession. Wanted to start today by talking about, your data, the state of the data, what's important to track and provide those real world examples of, some of the issues that other small businesses are facing. But definitely join us next week. We'll be talking about, moving past the bins and the file folder system and getting into a single source. And then we'll wrap up with a roadmap to succession planning. So definitely pop into LinkedIn, take a look at those links and join us if you can. So with that, I want to be cognizant of time and take a look at, any questions we hear quite often is this is a lot. Like, this is great, but I'm a small business. I'm trying to keep my business running. Where do I even start?
Yeah, that's good. I'll take a moment to answer that while the other ones come in. I think the important thing to do is to kind of start at your finish line. What do you want to do here? Are you looking to maximize what your business is worth to an outside organization to purchase or to sell outright? Or are you looking to do a generational pass? Once we know what that looks like for you, we work backwards and say this is the beginning of what you should be doing in order to get to that finish line, right? To that gold mine of what you're looking to do. The first thing we need to do is get your data in a single source, right? So it's timely if to come in next week and see how we plan to do that. It's important to have those file folders gone, those post-it notes, that single mind. Let that person in your organization who has all that information in their head, knows right what folders to go, let them have a break too. And then we start to digitize that, get it in a single source of truth, and then we can start to move forward. So first and foremost, know what you want to have as your success. What does that look like to you? And then we'll start from there and get your data in a good place.
Awesome. I love it. Well, like Leah said, make sure to jump on, join us next week. Head on over to our website to take a look at some other resources that we have. Feel free to reach out to either of us with any questions. We also have a contact form on our website, but so happy to have you here today. Hopefully, you found this insightful and valuable, and we will see you next week.